Hello viewers, Super GT here with dynamic weather in Gran Turismo 7. I thought it'd be a good idea to see what happens when there's a torrential downpour. And I'm going to do this around the longest circuit in the game, the Nurburgring 24-hour layout. Well, at least the most fearsome circuit, I know that for sure. So, I think it'd be a good idea here to really put myself through my paces with a 200 lap race for 100,000 credits. Maybe that's something for another day. We can do 3 laps for now. And here you can see that you can change the weather at 5 different points in the race. Now the longer the race is, the more points you can change, but for a 3 lap race here, 5 points. We're going to go sunny at the beginning, bit of rain in the middle, and then at the very end, thick cloud with torrential rain. Sounds very ominous indeed. Now, as the beginning of the race is dry, we are of course going to begin on slick tyres. We're going to go for the racing hards and see how this pans out. At some point, presumably, I am going to have to come into the pit lane and change over to inters or wets. Because if you look at the sky, at this point here, it is very blue. And there is no sign of moisture to be seen really anywhere. So for now, we continue as normal. We don't... Oh, guy going perpendicular to the racing line there. Not an ideal strategy. So let's take a look at the weather radar. As you can see, nothing there at the moment. No sign of any rain at all. And then the grip meter is quite hard to see. It's just on the left of the tyres. That is also empty. So no loss of grip. No rain to worry about at the moment. Now, this is the end of the first lap. I set it to 3 laps. So we're a third of the way into the race. As you can see, nothing really changes. A little bit further into lap number 2. And you can see that the sky has a weird sort of grey tinge to it now. It is semi-blue, but it's also turning grey slightly. A little bit further in, going perhaps a little bit more grey. And surely it's just a matter of time now before we begin to see our first couple of specks of rain on the windscreen. So not noticing any change of grip at this point. I mean, it's still dry, there's been no rain. An interesting aspect of the Nürburgring is that because it's such a big track, I suppose it can be different conditions on one part of the track compared to another. That's one of the reasons why I chose it for this video. Just so that we can see if the rain exactly corresponds with how the track conditions are. At the end of lap number 2, you can see that it's very grey now. There's still nothing on the rain radar though, and still nothing there, and the grip meter is still at the bottom. So there is no standing water. Now this is an important part of the race because it's the last chance to go into the pit lane. We're going to drive past it. This is a massive risk. So we're going to be very brave today and start the final lap on the hard tyres. We have to go to the finish now because we've driven past the pit lane. We have no choice but to finish now. None of the AI decide to go in, so I feel confident in my decision, but I definitely set it to torrential rain. So I don't know when it's going to happen. But as we come onto the Nordschliefe for the third and final time, the wall appears. There it is. In fact, the rain is coming in an exactly straight line. For the first time in recorded history. This is surely one of the top 10 things that science cannot explain. How this weather front is exactly straight. Surely this is the work of Moses. As you can see now, the wiper blades are beginning to move. I did not move those. It's automatic, although you can set a button to do that if you want, but I haven't. It's just doing it itself. And we are now driving just under the edge of the rain. As you can see on the radar, it has begun. We are now under the wave of water. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the grip meter has just begun to come up from 0. So let's see if there's any change to the levels of grip. I can see that the track surface looks a little bit different. As you see, there's some grooves, some lines, some different colours, some different shades of grey are beginning to form. But I'm not really feeling too much difference in terms of the grip. So there's 3 little sections on that grip meter, and I think once it gets into the middle section, that is when you really need to get onto inters. But we're not quite there yet. We're still into the bottom section, although it's actually very close now. As you can see, it's just creeping up to that middle section. So we're not quite there, but soon enough this is going to get very tricky. We are on the hard tyre, on slick tyres. I'm going to whip it forward a little bit. Through here it was fine. The track does look quite dangerous, but big braking zone here. Always going to be a big test of your level of grip. Nothing really happened there. It seemed fine through there, and then we have our first hint of a slide on the exit of that corner. How about this one? Downhill, often going to be a tricky braking zone, and there it is. There's our first confirmation of a lack of grip. How about through here? Yes, the car definitely is not turning as well as it should do now, and well, it should be a bit slower now that it's wet. But compared to the dry, it's definitely slower. A little bit further on, the grip meter going actually quite high up, and actually I'm going to have a massive moment into the barrier as quite ominously the second wave appears again in a completely straight line. So I'm not sure how the clouds are quite doing this, how they're forming into exact lines, but there you go. Quite miraculous scenes here at the Nurburgring. They call it the green hell. Maybe it'll be the blue hell now because of this massive torrent of water. Look at this massive queue of cars behind. The horde of AI are queuing up to overtake me, and I'm going to have a massive moment here into the Corvette, sliding it through the corner, and I've pushed the Corvette into the barrier. He's sliding all over the place, and I'm into the wall again. There's such a lack of grip. In fact, look at that, the Audi. Oh, I think this guy probably ought to put that green flag away, because I don't think we are quite under safe racing conditions here, with everyone spinning out left, right, and centre. So we're going to go past this Audi. As you can see, a lot more spray coming up from the cars. You can probably hear the rain coming down heavily, so it is quite audible. So I think that's actually the biggest clue, I think, to the track conditions. There's quite a few things you can watch out for. The weather radar as we slide sideways into the carousel, the grip meter as well, and the sound, and I suppose the visuals of the spray as this Audi goes for a nice little spin on the exit of the carousel, back into the lead in the slowest race of all time, going through here at 40 miles an hour as this Corvette. Oh, there's another Corvette on my left. Somehow didn't see it, although it's quite hard looking at the weather radar and the actual radar at the same time. Sliding wide. There's honestly like no grip when it gets this inundated with water. You can barely go 60 miles an hour without spinning out. I'm struggling for traction here in 5th gear at just under 60 miles an hour on the straight. Can barely get above 60 without the car wanting to slide all over the place. So this just shows you how difficult it is. If you get caught out in the wrong tyre in wet conditions, you're going to have an absolute nightmare of a time. So it's going to be interesting when you have some of these online races and you're not quite sure what's going to happen, and watching people's decision making is going to be very fun to see, and I can't wait to see how this pans out. Ultimately we win that race, but it wasn't without its difficulty. Over half an hour in the end. That final lap was about 4 minutes off the pace, and looking at this replay, it was hard to believe that barely half an hour before it was a dry and beautiful serene Nürburgring with a blue sky. So we're going to go again. Now watch this ridiculous start. Everyone just stops as if we're in a car park, and then I go and overtake everyone and get ignored a yellow flag penalty, which was fair. I think if everyone's going to stop and go 2 miles an hour, then it's probably actually worth just taking the penalty. Here it happens again. We're going to slow down. This time I wanted to check if it is actually better to pit for inters. It probably will be. I think it's a good idea to test it. So here we are at the end of lap 2. Once again, the rain has not appeared on the radar, but I sense that it's coming anyway because I've set it to appear in the final 20% of the race. So we're going to peel off to the right hand side, and this gives you perhaps a good idea of what the pit lane animation is like. And to be honest, it's actually just the same as GT Sport. So yeah, it's not really any development here. I wish there would have been. I think there's definitely room for some improvement here, but we're actually going to earn a trophy for that, and inadvertently get a crossing the pit lines penalty as well, as I was just a little bit distracted by the fact that I got a trophy. So 1 lap left to go here. No rain on the radar. We're going to serve this penalty. Slow down. There we go. We're on the inters, and we are 26 seconds away from the lead. So obviously it's quite a risk to lose that much time. But if you're going to lose 4 minutes a lap around a track this long by not having the correct tyre, then 26 seconds is a price worth paying, I might say. So once again, the torrential rain appears in a dead straight line. That's just how it works in the Gran Turismo universe. Now, rain isn't always like that. Sometimes it's more sporadic. I think it's just torrential rain seems to be like that. So don't be thinking that all rain just comes in a straight line on the weather radar. I'll show you an example in a minute where it's actually a little bit different. So now, again, the wipers are going. The rain is here. It might be quite hard to see, but we are gaining 18 seconds now behind the leader of the race. The rain in full flow, well, not quite full flow actually, in some sort of medium flow or below medium flow. I can't quite tell you, because on the weather radar there are those different colours, and the colours we're seeing, the light blue, the darker blue, they're on the bottom of that scale. So I've not yet seen what the colours at the top end of the scale represent, whether or not that is just like underneath a waterfall. I don't know how that's going to turn out, what the conditions are going to be like. But we've caught up with the top pack here, and you can see they are on the racing hards, they're on the slick tyres, they are struggling, and I can quite easily sail by. And what I can also quite easily do is get distracted by this big bump and looking behind and go flying into the barrier, just like that. So a quick lesson that don't get complacent and don't get ahead of yourself, because you could easily still crash into the barrier. Still very easy to do, even with the inters. And to be fair, the grip meter now has gone into the top third, which I assume suggests that I should have been on the wet tyres, but I played it fairly safe and went for the inters. But once again, easily sailing past the AI who are stuck on the wrong tyre. The wiper blades going a little bit quicker now and doing their job fantastically. Not that I'm looking through the windscreen anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Big puddle on the main straight. You see they're having a massive moment. Just managed to recover it though. That's 130 miles an hour. Brown trouser moment. Gonna get a new suit. Nothing happened there. You saw nothing. I kept that one out of the wall. Didn't keep that one out of the wall though. But this is across the finish line, so it doesn't really matter, does it? So we win that race, really courtesy of our fantastic decision making and the fact that I knew that the rain was going to happen. So it's amazing what kind of telepathic pit stop skills you can have if you know what conditions are about to happen. We're going to try this one though. So this one was sort of light rain at the beginning and then slightly heavier at the end. And as you see on the radar, as we lunge past the Jag, as you see on the radar, some sporadic rain, maybe about 90 miles away, but none of it is heading in our direction. So we got to the end of this race and there wasn't actually any rain. So even though I did set it to rain, it didn't rain. So we crossed the line, finished second, but I suppose it shows you that it can be quite random, and you know, even if you set it to a certain thing, to a certain weather, it's not absolutely guaranteed to happen. So it's more of like a percentage chance. And before they patched it, there was actually a percentage chance meter in the game. It's just not there now because they've patched it. They changed it before the release of the game. So it's a little bit different. But from what I can tell here, when you set a certain weather to happen, like light rain with a certain type of cloud, it doesn't mean it's definitely 100% going to rain. It just indicates what the weather could roughly be, which is quite good because it just means it's a bit more random, a bit harder to guess. And to be fair, rain is like that. It's not, you can't really ever predict it with absolute certainty. So we've got a bit of a yellow flag here. So lots of the AI struggling big time when they are on slick tyres in the rain, and that's good to see because it is difficult. It's not easy to drive these cars in the rain on the wrong tyre. Coming down here again, more AI spinning out all over the place. Just slowing down to obey the yellow flags, make sure we don't get the penalty. And at the end of the race here, now you can see here there was no weather radar. There's nothing on the weather radar, but the track is still wet. So this suggests that even though the weather radar didn't really suggest any rain, certain parts of the track can still be wet when you get to them for the first time. Especially again around this track, because it is such a big track, then you're never quite sure where the rain has been around here. But that's good to see. I think I've really enjoyed this little experience. I think there's a lot more to be seen. I just wanted to give it a quick experiment and just quickly bring you a demonstration of the weather radar. I think it's a really good addition, and I'll be really keen to get into it in more depth with some of the other circuits as well. But I think it's a really good addition, especially for league racing. I think it's going to be very, very cool, especially if the host can choose the weather and no one else knows what it is. That's going to be very, very good indeed. So it was a little bit different here because I knew what was roughly going to happen because I'm the one that set it. I do hope you enjoyed this one. And let me know your thoughts on the dynamic weather as that, I guess, punted off. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching. I shall catch you next time. Bye.